John Sargent with the Alarm Museum.
And I'm Ralph Sevinor with the Alarm Museum. Welcome.
We're here today with Dan McGrath, legal counsel with ADT headquarters in Boca Raton, Florida. Welcome, Dan.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
And this is a special opportunity for me because I worked with Dan for many, many years on different projects. But let's start with you, Dan. If before you got into this business, you know, when you were a teenager or whatever, what did you think you wanted to do as a career?
It was not being in the alarm services industry. Growing up, I did well in math and science, and so the thought was be an engineer. And so my undergraduate degree is in chemical engineering at Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh, kind of focused on a technical engineering career. Given kind of the what's the word I want to use? Kind of the rigor of the engineering education at Carnegie Mellon. I kind of found myself looking for other avenues and things, and I took some classes that were electives that were taught by lawyers, and kind of that sparked an interest. I went to work in the power systems industry for 3 years and still had this thought about going to law school. I'm saving some money. I saw a sign to take the LSAT, and so there's a kind of a series of what the heck decisions. It was, well, what the heck, I'll take the test. Did well enough to think, well, what the heck, I'll apply to some schools, and got accepted to a couple of schools, went to school in Vermont, and ended up directing myself into a legal career. Went to a law firm down in Miami, had been with the firm for 10 years, was a third-year shareholder when I got a call from a recruiter, a headhunter. This was at the time in '96, ADT's moving its corporate headquarters from Parsippany, New Jersey, down to Boca Raton, Florida. They were looking to reconstitute a legal department, and so that was my entree to pursue a career in the industry.
And did you like litigation or contract law?
The role that was being recruited for was litigation counsel, and I was a litigator and doing a lot of product liability and commercial work down in Miami, and so my skill set matched what they were looking for.
Right.
And then that just led to another series of what the heck decisions. It was what the heck, they invited me for an interview and forced me to update my resume, and then you know, they offered me a job, and it was like, oh, what the heck. So I ended up moving from Miami to Boca Raton.
Okay. And so was that around the time who was your boss? Was it?
So this is 1996. So at that time, it was the general counsel for ADT was Jan Beck, and this is pre-Tyco. So Steve Ruzicka had taken over as president and CEO from Les Beraldi, and they were setting the headquarters up in Boca Raton, and Gray Finney, who later became general counsel, started the very same day I did. He was commercial counsel, and I was litigation counsel.
Interesting. So then, so you're here, and you see ADT continuing to grow, and then all of a sudden Tyco comes into the picture.
That was a very interesting time, because if you recall, in hindsight, I now realize that a lot of the organizational changes were being made in order to get ADT sold, and so there was the circumstance of, prior to Tyco coming in, they had there was a tender offer by what was Wayne Huizinga's company?
The Halley Group?
No, it was Wayne Huizinga's
Republic
Republic Industries. So Republic Industries, makes a tender offer, and I can't remember what ADT was trading at the time, and Republic was trading at the time, but it was kind of close, and nobody's stock was doing anything, which I understood meant that the street wasn't really enthusiastic about the proposed transaction. Then Western Resources,
Right.
who was ADT's largest shareholder, makes the hostile tender offer. And so I remember, I'm just paying attention to my job, but watching all of the executives running around, because of all of the issues going on.
I think they took a poison pill on that, didn't they?
So they built one of those, and then I can remember at the time I was still commuting from Miami to Boca Raton, and I'm getting in my car driving to work, and they announce on the news that Tyco International out of New Hampshire had made a tender offer of ADT at $23 or whatever it was, and Western Resources offer was $13, $16 or something like that, and not being a Wall Street whiz kid, I thought to myself, $23. I figured I knew where this was going to end up, but that was all during my tenure right after starting.
Let me ask you that at that time, because this is a little before where people may remember, but you had ADT worldwide too before Tyco, correct? It was ADT Europe, Asia, South America. Was that all part of the same?
No, that evolved through Tyco and Tyco's international business. So ADT was focused on its business footprint in the United States, and I don't even think the United States, and then Puerto Rico and Virgin Islands, but we didn't even have at that time a presence in Canada. And then that evolved through through ownership through Tyco.
Yeah. So then Tyco is here, and was there much that changed, or did they kind of let ADT continue, to grow as it did?
Well, the answer to both of those questions is yes. We were. The transaction closed, I assume it called July 1997. And so from that point through the issues that Tyco had in the early 2000s, we were fairly autonomous as far as supporting ADT and not having to interact at a significant level with Tyco. Tyco at that point really didn't have a centralized legal department. Then with all of the management changes that occurred in 2002, 2003, Tyco kind of established a central legal department, and we became a function of that.
So then we're around the time, it was, I want to say 2000, 2001, that I entered the picture through SecurityLink.
Yep.
We've got this giant number 2, I think it was at the time, company, and coming into the picture with Tyco and merging into ADT. And about the same time, Bill Cooper out of Louisville, Kentucky, sold his company to ADT.
Yep.
But prior to that, I know that you had Bill Moody really as the guy that would handle I guess you might call it industry relations at the time. And so, I know the three of us linked up, and I had actually met you before we were merged into ADT when we were dealing with some issues in Henderson, Nevada, and we had these no response, coming up from different jurisdictions, and you were the ADT lawyer that was in the room with a lot of other people too at the same time. But I know you had other work that you were doing in the legal department, but you seem to end up with this on your plate too.
No, that's kind of part of the role when you're an in-house attorney is you wear as many hats as you need to wear, and so beyond just kind of the ordinary course work in supporting the company, an area that I kind of gravitated to in large part through Bill Moody's influence was supporting the industry relations efforts that were underway, in part because it became at least I became aware of just the need to work in a unified fashion for those issues that came up largely jurisdictionally that would adversely affect everybody, regardless of how competitive we may have been with each other, in the day-to-day business. There were threats that would adversely affect everyone if we didn't pull together and work to change things.
Yeah.
And was that just an ADT function, or is that more of an industry function?
That's an industry function, and going back to the comment is as far as the concept of herding cats. Part of the effort was getting everybody on board to focus on it, and the one thing that always struck me is it usually didn't take that much for the ADT's competitors for those in the industry to just understand the nature of these individual threats and come together and coalesce to focus on it. So because it was definitely common threats.
And did you and then you were suddenly exposed to these other influences, largely negative, from different companies who had their own opinion. Like, well, go tell them to take a hike or whatever, and I'm being polite, but then you were thinking, what did you think? You knew what we needed to do with as far as ADT, but getting everybody together and to be able to work together, and then you would see the threat. Let's take Los Angeles or Fontana, something like that. What were your thoughts initially?
It would be kind of a sequencing. I understood as I began to develop relationships with others throughout the industry, not just at ADT, that different people had different thoughts on how to approach things. And I had my thoughts, and then working internally with all of the resources that we had, and subject matter experts at ADT, kind of understanding our view from a company point of view, then understanding what do we think is going to be the best path to accomplish the end result that we want to accomplish, and then just that aspect of trying to communicate as effectively, being an advocate for an approach that we thought would be the successful approach, and then getting everyone on board to tie into that.
And then I also just recalled, that was one piece of it. But the other thing that I think everyone seemed to have issues with was, okay, we've got this plan. We're going to do this. We're going to hire, an attorney, a local law firm or whatever, but then getting people to pay for it.
So,
And that, I know, was because I was involved in collections on Los Angeles, San Francisco, and so
it's the old, at the end of the dinner when the bill comes, everybody starts excusing themselves. But understanding that we all needed to contribute and contribute proportionally to, not necessarily how big the company was, how deep their pockets were, but within that particular market area, within that particular jurisdiction, whose businesses were likely to be most adversely affected, and kind of looking at it that way as far as just allocating kind of a fair share of the expense.
I think that's one of the virtues of SEAC. The success
I was just going to
stories,
go
right?
there, yeah.
Because from my perspective, it's almost like an insurance policy. It's ubiquitous where it can go countrywide, right? And you can modulate if someone in Boston, for example, has an issue, you put more resources, to your point.
Yeah. So we formed SEAC. It was originally called the CARE program.
Oh, I didn't know.
That's right. That's
yeah,
right.
The CARE program, and
Was that an acronym or?
it was, and
It
I'm
had
sorry
to
I
have
couldn't
been.
tell you right now what it meant, but that became SEAC, the Security Industry Alarm Coalition. But we had a group of professional law enforcement, retired law enforcement, and then a couple of us from the industry. I know we had, of course, Bill Moody, Bill Cooper, and myself, and then Dave Simon with Brinks at the time,
Right.
and Kathleen Schraufnagel and a couple others too. But that was really the end of the funnel to the problems that we had before, with all these different situations. And even then, there were some people that never could sign on with SEAC. They had their own opinion, and that was the way it was going to be. So.
Do you think that still is today?
Not anywhere near like what it used to be, because SEAC has had so many successes, and it's been really, they've created best practices, which even today work, and any jurisdiction, city, county, or even state that follows those is going to have a marked reduction in false alarms. But so then we had SEAC, and of course we went through many more issues, and then some threats, somewhere it came to the point that it didn't matter what we had to say, and Fontana is the one that comes to my mind, because unfortunately we tried everything we could to get them to go with best practices and do what we did, and there was a captain there that just said, no, we're not going to respond to alarms, and that ended up with legal, and this is something I'd like to just slip in here real quick, is while Bill Moody and Bill Cooper and myself and other people that were involved in the SEAC and that, we all did everything we could to deal with these, and we would write up things and plan what we were going to do together. So we always had a unified thing. But there was one person who was always the person behind the curtain that nobody saw. And that was when we were going to go, before a government agency or before a police department. What we said was a little bit rough on the edges, and the one person that was that guy behind the curtain was Dan McGrath. Dan was the guy who polished everything that I had to do and the two Bills had to do. So when we went in, we looked really good, but we could not have done that without Dan. Dan, first of all, made sure what we were saying was legal and was what we should be saying, because if we didn't, then we were going to get a countersuit or something. So I have to really acknowledge you for that, because you were always there, even when you didn't want to be. I can't tell you how many times we talked at night and you were still in your office and going through things, and I'd send you a draft and you'd fix it up and send it back, and then we had something that I could work with and the others could too.
Well, I think it also goes a little further. You're not just in legal. I mean, you got involved in codes and standards, central station, installation. So you sort of became very well-rounded in our industry.
And quite frankly, that's why I've been so fortunate to have been offered this role and the job, because I've become involved in the business operations at so many different levels, not just legal things, and And that's why I'm very glad that the opportunity presented itself. And
You didn't know what you got yourself into, right?
yeah, well, that staying late at night, that's just kind of the consequence of having made poor career decisions early on, and that's the nature of the business sometimes. But what you're talking about, is reflective of just kind of the joint cooperative effort, whether it's the industry and different members within the industry working together within the company, but no company can do it by itself. It's that coalition of resources coming together with a focused goal and then addressing the goal. And I'm glad that I was able to help contribute to those efforts.
Yeah, and I'm glad to hear that it's grown to where it is today. SEAC, that it has just the clout, the respect, the clout. That's amazing.
So then let's see. So then there's a spinoff in 2012, and so ADT becomes its own standalone company, and Tyco is doing its thing, and then. So how has things gone for you since then? Because in 2017, I retired from ADT and Tyco, so and I still continue to follow the industry and see what's going on, but I'm not hands-on anymore, so I don't know what today's kind of issues are. What do you?
Well, it's interesting. At the time of, back in the 2012 timeframe, Tyco made the business decision to separate the ADT residential and small the high volume business, to spin that business off as its own standalone publicly traded company, and Tyco kept the commercial business, the national account, the commercial, the federal government business. At the time, I had a business operations support role on the commercial side. So when the split occurred, I had stayed with the Tyco ADT entity.
Mm-hmm.
And then shortly after that, Tyco's making some changes as they are consolidating. They had Simplex Grinnell and ADT, and so I was going to be consolidated out of a role when I was aware, given relationships,
Mm-hmm.
the new ADT was looking for a litigation guy.
Mm-hmm.
And having been a litigation guy, I made some phone calls, and within weeks I'm back on the ADT side of the fence, and couldn't be happier with just how coincidentally things ended up working out.
Mm-hmm.
So that whole period of time, and we're coming up on a 10-year anniversary of that this year.
Yeah.
So it's been a journey.
Yeah. So so where we're at today, are you still involved in the piece that I used to work with?
So we're still involved. I'm still involved in the industry relations work, and as you both may be aware, with John, there is a central focus, that remains constant and steady on false alarm reduction,
Mm-hmm.
and not having to overburden public response resources, and with the advances in technology, and ADT's been actively involved on that side. The industry is making great strides in further reducing incidents of false alarm dispatches, and I can only imagine that as technology develops and expands even further, we're going to do even better in that area.
So where do you see the future at this point, from your perspective, kind of broad?
Yeah, and I don't know if I'm the right person to be asking in generalized terms that there's going to be the ability to communicate with response agencies, through technology as opposed to through call center central station agents
There's been a big improvement with the ASAP program,
ASAP,
automated
yes.
dispatching. But don't let me take you off.
No. Well, with video becoming such an ubiquitous feature that everyone has video capabilities, whether through its phone or home automation systems, and kind of that ability through a visual means of data gathering, the ability to verify events becomes better, and with better verification becomes more accurate dispatching to response agencies, and so I think there's a lot to look forward to.
Is there a threat there? Because when you're dealing with video, it becomes a little foggy. Is it a real person? Is it a fake person? Is it a person that's supposed to be there? How does that, look into your crystal ball about litigation?
Yeah, you raise valid points, but some video is better than no video,
Yeah.
and kind of falls back on some information is better than no information.
Right.
So the more information we're able to gather, the more information that we are able to convey to the response agencies, the more accurate our responses can be, and more accurate the response agency responses can be.
I have a question for you. We were talking a few minutes ago about standards, the importance of having sort of a high level of standards. And with technology moving at such a fast rate, standards don't necessarily evolve as quickly, right? And I understand on the fire side it's important to have standards, but it's a question I always ask myself: are these standards holding us back? Because the technology is now moving so quickly that we can't really. The standards may be holding us back.
I think that's the challenge that the industry faces. Not only the industry as far as kind of the dealer installing side, but also on the technology equipment side, and so that's the interaction of not only kind of the operations involvement, but kind of that industry liaison involvement, kind of lobbying, because the same holds true with kind of laws and legislation.
Mm-hmm.
Laws tend to lag where society is given developments in technology, and so it's just a matter of constant communication and trying to keep everyone up to speed.
So I'm from Massachusetts. There's 351 cities and towns. We probably deal in about 100 of those, right? And so you have to deal with thousands. How do you get your head around that? Everyone's got their own rules, regulations, standards, right? Crazy.
That's why you hire good people to man your jurisdictions department, so that everyone's paying attention to what they need to be paying attention to, where they need to be paying
attention. So you leave it to the local.
So that's well, not so much local, because those functions can be centralized, but you need kind of operations personnel focused, and then legal can support, but the requirements for the jurisdictions are largely well known, and for a company that's been doing business as long as ADT, it's just a matter of making sure that we're paying attention to what's required in this town versus what's required in this town.
Does the legal get actually involved in customers that want to take the limited liability, exculpatory language, subrogation clauses and contracts? Do you get into that level too?
We'll tend to those things
fun.
From time to time, and in all fairness, those types of disputes don't arise all that often. They may happen a little more frequently, on the ADT side, which is just a function of customer density. But when you take a look at, from the operational side, we don't miss all that often, and I would say, on an industry perspective, the industry doesn't miss very often, so the opportunities for those types of disputes are limited. That would be my observation.
If I was just starting out in the business, what would you tell me? If you told me 3 top priorities, what would they be?
If you were just starting out in the business, I would say there's already too many people in this business, and
I
so
agree.
You might want to pick another business.
Okay, that's one.
So that's an unfair question. Well,
I would say get involved in associations, get involved in local rules and regulations, jurisdictions. And I'd start out with that, I think.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. And the challenges with everything else that companies, businesses, service providers in this space need to pay attention to. It's that age-old, allocation of scarce resources challenge, because you need to pay attention to your people. You need to pay attention to what you need to do in this particular jurisdiction. You need to sell, you need to install, you need to make sure you're doing everything right. You've got your relationships with your monitoring, or you've got your own monitoring capabilities. And then on top of that, you need to have the relationships with on the legislative side of understanding what laws may be affecting you, on the regulatory side, what things do you have to comply with. And it's for all of these reasons that I would probably try and dissuade someone wanting to get into
It's a
this
complex
industry
business
right now.
It really is. It's a complex business now. It's not like it was 20 years ago.
No, it's not. No, it's not. And particularly now that you've got the tech giants involved,
Right.
And the resources that they bring,
Right.
is a challenge to everyone, from ADT on down.
Well, Dan, this has been great,
It has been.
and I want to just put out one more thing for you. Is there anything that we haven't covered, or something that you might like to just mention before we close?
Yeah, actually, if given my involvement in the industry, and kind of having had the opportunity to observe what I've observed, if I think there's something ADT needs to be mindful of, the industry needs to be mindful of, that is succession planning. If you take a look at the leaders, there are so many, with so much experience, who's in the pipeline, what's in the pipeline, because we're just going to have natural attrition. And I think a challenge for ADT, a challenge for the industry, is making sure that there's that young talent ready to take on leadership roles, within companies, within the industry, within our efforts to maintain and foster our relationships with jurisdictional authorities. I think that should be an area of focus within individual companies and within the industry, is making sure that we've got talent that is ready to take the mantle and move forward.
One of the common themes I've heard today at ADT is that the mentorship that goes on, that's the impression I'm left with, is people have really opened up and taught. You mentioned Jay Hahn as an example, and that's, I never realized that. That's so great to hear. But you struck a nerve, because when you talked about succession planning, I thought of it from a small business, right? A family business, handing it up. But it applies just the same to a large business, right? And how true that is. So I think ADT's done a wonderful job of educating, propagating that, right? How do we do more of it? not just at ADT, but as an industry? How do we attract more people, younger people?
Mhm.
It's a challenge.
Yeah. All right. Well, Dan,
This is great. Yeah.
Gentlemen.
Yeah, this is
it has been, it has been
Pleasure to-
it
to see you.
was an
Yeah.
honor to meet you. It's
Yeah.
an honor to meet you. I think the project that you guys are doing is just absolutely great.